Hi guys, so I'm going to talk about the progressions that I've made with the screen capture application here. So I've got my region capture. The difference between this one and the last one is that I had to expand the region capture form to the entire screen so that I can have these crosshairs visible everywhere so that the user can align things properly. And basically it just works the same. The only thing is that everything inside the region is captured except for the stuff under the region, the 1 pixel region border, so that the user sees everything that they capture. I decided to do this just as a thing to do. And the magnifying glass is now rectangular just because it more matches the theme of the application. As well, I'm displaying the position and the size in the magnifying glass. Also, with the window in the region capture, I freeze the form or freeze the entire display by taking a screenshot of it and then expanding another form with the background image set as the capture. So you'll see that there's no rollover effects or anything. It's just because this is a bitmap, and when I take a picture, it crops that bitmap down to the appropriate size. Then you have a cropping rectangle here before you go into the second save image dialog, and you can crop your image to whatever. Basically, the cropping rectangle is just a lot of bounds checks, and it's pretty sweet. It took a long time. Here is window capture. You can actually see it now because I'm doing significantly less work on the mouse move event. And so I can hold down the control key, capture more than one window. I can keep doing that. There's the start menu, system tray, sorry. Okay, and capture full screen works a bit differently now. You actually use the mouse to capture a full screen, and it's more discoverable. So here's a big border for the outline, and it's inner so that it doesn't expand on different screens, because if it was centered like the default behavior, it would show, a bit of the outline would show on another screen. It would look kind of wrong. You can also use the arrow keys with window capture and full screen capture to navigate between the available screens, or windows, sorry. And then you can use enter or space to capture the screen. And yes, I did do a lot of debugging on a multi-screen environment as well. I sent this app to a couple different people to test it out for me, and so far I've gotten no bad bug reports that I couldn't fix. Okay, here is capture elliptical region. This is a working of the region capture mode. Basically, you capture a rectangular region that has this transparency mask applied to it according to the rectangle. So it's just a rectangle, but it's really a circle. So here's the circle here. You take a capture, and there's the thing here. So I can save this as a PNG. Currently, I can only get proper transparency with a PNG. So I can save it as a PNG, and here it is on my desktop. So I can open this up in Photoshop, and you will see the transparency of the image. I'm just using the graphics path defined to define the form here to actually apply the transparent mask to the image. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know if I told you, but I do have that cancel sound. It sounds like a frog, but it does also sound like a terminating sound, so I decided to use it. I made it by generating tone in Audacity and then editing that tone. Okay, here's the settings form, and right off the bat you'll notice the group boxes here. These are a working of the group box control in my BSF control library. I decided to adjust their appearance to more match the theme of the application. Before I had the dashes on the pen, but that was a bit too busy looking, so I just did a solid line. So I still have an option to bring windows forth before capture. Right now you can't really use that because I'm freezing the captures or freezing the screen, but I think I'm going to have an option to unfreeze or not freeze the screen, sorry. So I got my hotkeys down here. So you got defaults 1, which are less likely to be reserved in opposed to defaults 2, because if I were to open up defaults or use defaults 1 and then start fast down capture, actually that's a bad example because fast down capture actually conflicts with these ones here because it uses very similar hotkeys, but basically 2 defaults. These ones are more discoverable but more likely to be reserved because they're simple, and then these ones not so much. But if you have other screen capture applications, then these will actually be or conflict with the other applications. Anyhow, I can just change this to like Control Alt A for full screen, exit, press Control Alt A, there's full screen. And I'm serializing using the binary formatter or the binary serializing techniques or whatever, and loading them. Just using basic serializing techniques to load and save the hotkeys. Nothing much. Basically, I had initial problems keeping track of the modifiers. So I was at first using basic global hook techniques using unhook Windows hook exe and set Windows hook exe to get global hotkeys, and that was very hard to keep track of the modifiers, and it was very inelegant. So I decided that I'm going to find a different way, and I discovered unregister hotkey and register hotkey, and this is quite a bit more elegant. With this, you specify the ID, the handle for the form or the window that is to receive the messages of the hotkey, and then you can just handle it in that window there. It's different, but either way, it's definitely preferable to use these for hotkeys. You can see my global hook base class here, just so that when I first started I was extending the mouse hooks from this and the key hooks from this. Now I'm just extending mouse hooks. Okay, and then there's the command line interface. And sometimes the command line interface is separate from the main assembly, sometimes it isn't. In my case, it isn't. And there's quite a bit to it. I'm only going to go over the basics, but if you want to learn more about how I structured the command line interface, then it's going to be in the product documentation that I'll write when the application is finished. So, with the command line interface, you can organize the arguments however you want. You basically just call the executable, pass in some arguments. The only mandatory argument is a file path or a directory. With the directories, the output files are automatically named and you can do multiple operations. With the file names, you can only do a single operation, but it's saved to your own named file name. And the extension or the image format that's exported is automatically interpreted by the extension and the file name. With their directories, by default it's .bitmap. You can specify a extension like this to explicitly specify your image format output, and that's basically how it works. There's a couple different operations you can do. So -w is get or capture the foreground window, and then so that's foreground window, and this is capture a window with a specified caption, and then there's -f to capture your screen at index 0. You can also specify a screen index, so -f2 would capture my second screen. This isn't working too properly right now, but I'm working on it. And then there's that's all the switches, I think. Basically, with switches you have, and you should give the user the option to use a / or a dash. Switches are functionality that are or are not to be fired, as well they're booleans, like just states or something, on-off states. And the cool thing about this is that there's also region capture. So you can do region capture at 23 pixels by 23x, 23y, and then 100 by 100. Basically just parsing this with a regular expression. Save this. So let's take a look at this. The output files should be put in a directory on my C drive called bitmap, and then it should output a region capture with the default extension of BMP and default image format of bitmap. So let's take a look at that. Go to my C drive and ignore this. There's the region capture there in my bitmap folder. And that's just the command line window or whatever that appeared momentarily. So let's do full screen capture, see what that is. Or actually, that's not very interesting. We'll do -W for foreground window. So let's go back to that bitmap directory, and there's the foreground window capture, which is the command window that appeared momentarily. And like I said, with the directories, when you specify a directory, you can do more than one operation. So I can do -F, -F, -F. So I can do sequence shots and stuff. If you want more of a delay between your operations, you have to use the desktop paint time to do that. So I can specify a desktop paint time of 1000 for a second. It will perform foreground window, and then wait a second, and then do the full screen capture, and then wait a second and do more full screen captures. So I'm going to save this, run this, and it's running, and it's done. We can go back to the C drive, take a look at the output, and there's my stuff there. So we got 3 full screen captures and this foreground window capture. With my logic, the full screen captures fire first, and then afterwards the window capture. So some things that I plan to implement are user-defined regions, where the user will define a graphics path using just straight lines, and that will define the region, as well to have an option to not freeze the screen, and maybe some other stuff I'll throw in there if I have any ideas. But that's basically it.